What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So the other day, an interesting discovery was made with a new studio focusing on Nintendo. This one, though, not being necessarily controlled by Nintendo. And there's a lot of history with this, and we're going to go over that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about the PlayStation Portal because it looks like there's been a bit of a twist to where scalpers are having an absolute field day with the device. And we'll also be taking a look at Persona 6, as SEGA did talk a bit about the potential for some massive sales that might rely on more than just the PlayStation system. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure to hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And we're gonna start today with Baldur's Gate 3 and Larian's plans for a physical release, which is something they've been hinting at for a while now, but they have made it official, which we can see this posted up over on their Twitter account, where they say the deluxe edition for PS5, Xbox, and PC includes the digital deluxe edition as well as exclusive physical feelies, including a 3-disc original soundtrack, map, and more, all for $79.99. I think the most impressive part about this is, if you look at the Xbox version, they want to get everything on disc. Obviously, right? You buy it, you feel like you should have everything there in the box, not have to make some massive download. They have 3 discs on the Xbox, and I was asking around a little bit. Apparently, the Xbox Series, or just Microsoft, didn't provide UHD Blu-rays, so ones that can hold, I guess, 100 gigabytes? I thought that was kind of odd, but I mean, it sort of matches up if you look at the Xbox version at 3 discs, and then the PlayStation 5 version at 2, but people were calling for this physical edition. They threw a bunch of extras in there, it coming in at $79.99. I think this is going to do very, very well for them. This, they're lining up to release in Q1 of 2024, so if you were waiting for this physical copy, probably worth going over there, getting a pre-order, and looking towards, I guess, sometime between January and March for its release date. Also, we got a bit more out of Embracer when it comes to their plans to consolidate and cut back on expenses, which we know has resulted in a bunch of different games being canceled and many, many layoffs. In fact, we can see this posted up over on gamesindustry.biz saying Embracer debt reduced to $1.4 billion as restructure continues. That's right, reduced to $1.4 billion, which is kind of ridiculous in terms of them still being in that kind of debt after reducing it to that number. Group says it has laid off 904 people since the process began. Now, remember, they have multiple phases. In fact, they said that the first phase of its capital expenditure reductions have been completed. Now they're starting the second phase, which is following a review of Group's pipeline of upcoming PC and console games. The review saw 15 projects, mainly unannounced titles from Gearbox, PlayOn, Saber Interactive, THQ Nordic, Amplify, and Freemode being written down. And unfortunately, they were not willing to go on record and comment on what's happening with Time Splitters, which makes me feel like that's probably not coming out, which is very, very unfortunate. And again, it seems like more and more games are probably going to be cut out here at Embracer, and I would expect more and more layoffs to follow. Oh, and as we've been talking about Black Friday deals seemingly just about every day this week, because obviously we're heading into the holiday shopping season, it looks like Target has published their ads as well, which you can see here, which just scroll through it as we kind of go over some of this. I mean, they have like the Xbox Series, we mentioned that before, it being marked down to $450, also coming with a $75 gift card, and they have a number of different games ranging from $40 all the way down to $10, so you can check it out here. These prices will be valid, they say, November 19th to the 25th. I'm sure in-store will be a madhouse during like that Black Friday time just after Thanksgiving, but I'm gonna take a look at the flyer and start planning things out ahead of time. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with a new studio that's specifically focusing on development for Nintendo first-party games going forward. But the interesting thing about this is it's not necessarily a studio that's controlled by Nintendo. Now, from what I could tell, this first was discovered on Famiboards with this post here. This was from N75, who said that they were looking around at some of the different job listings that were posted up by Bandai Namco, and one line mentioned at S Studio, you'll be responsible for developing consumer games that will be commissioned by Nintendo. So looking into this a bit further, as it seems like the site was linked out of that job listing, brings you to this site, And it's a subdomain of Bandai Namco Studios.com that talks about Bandai Namco Studios' second studio and S Studio. Say it has been a studio specializing in commission development projects within the company, and they list a number of games here from Nintendo: Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, Mario Kart Tour, and I mean, we know that Bandai has worked with Nintendo for quite some time with things like Smash Brothers, but they also name ARMS, Mario Sports Superstars on the 3DS, and I think this one is kind of interesting, mostly because it seems like a formal announcement almost, like a setup here. We also know like Bandai Namco's worked with Game Freak and the Pokemon Company recently, I know on new Pokemon Snap, but I know they've also done other titles with them outside of that. So it is interesting, I think, to see this website seemingly just kind of appear here out of nowhere, them setting up Studio 2 and Studio S, almost like Nintendo is planning on going into a new generation that is probably going to require more and more development and help behind the scenes. So Bandai Namco coming in here with, I guess, a studio to co-develop and contract out from Nintendo makes a lot of sense. It does also make me think a bit about what Nintendo could have planned maybe for the next Smash Brothers, as that seems to be what Bandai Namco is really involved in with Nintendo. That and the next Mario Kart, most likely. So them making this formal, of course, Nintendo seemingly bringing them in for more and more of their first-party games going forward, to the point where Bandai Namco is comfortable enough to form these two studios. Yeah, I feel like you're going to be seeing quite a bit of Bandai Namco going into Nintendo's next generation that is, we assume, taking the fidelity level really to the next phase with 4K, and I'm sure quite a bit more work when it comes to the visuals that'll be included. So interesting stuff there. Definitely want to keep an eye out for Bandai Namco's logo, and I guess Studio 2 and Studio S maybe popping up in those credits, or when you first turn on the game, especially with, I would assume, something like the next Mario Kart being lined up potentially as a launch title going into next generation with Nintendo. Next up, let's talk about the PlayStation Portal. It is out now, and I did pick one up. Going to be doing a video around this over the weekend, so keep an eye out for that one, because I am very curious as to what's going on inside of this handheld controller with a screen. I feel like that's kind of how I'm leaning, is just a controller, a DualSense that has an 8-inch screen between the handles, as it still relies on your PlayStation 5. So clearly there's been some discourse online around if this device should even exist, how necessary is it, and how much do consumers actually want this thing? Well, if we take a look over on Sony's site, it's completely sold out, and it's not just like Sony's US site, also in the UK, it's mentioned that you have to check back, and in fact, on PlayStation.com, their direct site, says not in stock. Please check back early December for more details on stock availability, and I think you know where this is going. Yeah, if you look over on eBay, it is indeed getting scalped and resold like crazy right now, marked up roughly 50%. However, I did notice that some PlayStation Portals that have been purchased have like $40 or $50 shipping charges on top, so some were going technically for about $350 to $360, significantly more than the $200 asking price Sony has on their site. See, because it's one thing to just list the item for the $300, that kind of pricing, but these are ones that are selling pretty consistently. I mean, multiple PlayStation Portals selling every day since its launch, well over that established retail price. And this could be a number of things. One, the PlayStation brand, as weird as it may seem to, I see people online who are like, Spider-Man 2 came out. We don't really know what else is coming up, but as I've discussed before, the PlayStation, especially in that PS4 generation, established itself as kind of that default system if you want to play Madden, Call of Duty, FIFA, a lot of the mainstream stuff, right? And Sony really pushed that brand hard and has become the mainstream system, really, I would say, at this point. So when you see an accessory like this that might be getting requested and asked for quite a bit, maybe for the holidays, yeah, going into the Christmas shopping season, it's going to be a hot item, and, well, it sells out seemingly on Sony's site, which means you got to turn to the aftermarket, and when there's demand and not as much supply, you get these kind of prices, even though it seems to be a head-scratching device for many people I see on social media. Now, again, I will be sharing my thoughts on it as we kind of dive into it, especially when I get a chance to open it up. As for now, though, I would hold out a bit because I feel like Sony will have these in stock ahead of Christmas, the holidays, and I am seeing these start to pop up more and more at Best Buy and others. So make sure you check out and follow Jake Randall, as he has been posting links as they have gone live at major retailers. So I think you should still be able to get it at $200, the, again, suggested retail price, without too much issue. You just might have to look around a little bit. Next up, let's talk about the Famitsu sales charts. These, of course, track video game sales week to week. And for the past couple of weeks, we've seen the PlayStation 5 system sell, I mean, just about like no systems. It's like 1,000 or so. And we figured that was because Sony was just not shipping out the standard PS5, the original one that's been selling for really the past 3 years or so. And they were waiting to release the new PlayStation 5 dubbed the Slim model with detachable disk drive. And well, we can see that reflected now in the sales charts with a massive week actually for Sony. And interestingly enough, on the software side, it was a pretty good week as well, which we can see this posted up over on Install Base Forum. Now, at the top, Super Mario Bros. Wonder is still there, even with a 40% drop at 65,000 copies, quickly running up to that 1 million mark, by the way, in Japan. Physical copies here being sold. But then right below that, we have Like a Dragon, The Man Who Erased His Name. This is divided up between the PS5 and the PS4. Technically, if you combine them, they would be number one, but because, you know, they're two different platforms, I guess, under Sony, 63,319 on the PS5, 60,134 on the PlayStation 4. So pretty impressive week, I would say, there for Like a Dragon. That's good stuff. And then Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 coming in 22,132. Call of Duty doesn't necessarily sell the greatest in Japan, so there you go. WarioWare Move It is at 13,340. Then we have Call of Duty MW3 on the PS4, Fashion Dreamer on the Switch, Pikmin 4, Animal Crossing New Horizons, and then Jinsei game for Nintendo Switch. Moving over to the hardware, a massive jump, as mentioned, for the PS5, up to 107,953 systems. Now, this does at least make some sense, of course, with the pent-up demand for the new PlayStation 5, as there just weren't seemingly any in stock for the past couple of weeks. And then also, Like a Dragon Gaiden, that did really, really well. This is one of the few times where the PlayStation 5 sales seem to match up with software that's also selling in the top 10. And we have the Switch, 65,783, still trucking along there for it coming up to 31.5 million systems sold. Remember, crossing that 33.5 million, I mean, that's easily putting it as the best-selling system ever in Japan, and it is running up to that now. The Xbox Series below that, 2,578, then the PS4 at 1,330, and then, once again, 23 3DS systems were found in the back somewhere. So definitely an impressive week for the PlayStation 5, although I guess the two previous weeks where they didn't really sell any kind of evens all of this out. So I'll be more curious to see how this continues heading up to the holidays, the end of December, to see if they continue selling maybe PS5s at this kind of level, although I think it'll fall back down to that 40, 50, maybe 60,000 unit, but they are also running up to that 5 million mark in Japan alone. And considering a lot of people look at Sony as moving out of Japan, basically, for them, that's actually pretty good, I'd say, 3 years into the generation. So we'll see how the PS5 continues to sell over the coming weeks. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about SEGA and Persona 6, which a lot of anticipation around this game, considering Persona 5 came out back in 2016. Remember, it had a split launch in terms of it coming out in Japan and then coming out in the US and worldwide. This time, though, it appears SEGA wants to go a different route with that release schedule when it comes to it being a worldwide release all at once, as well as on multiple different systems. We can see this posted up, this over on Persona Central, quoting Sega's fiscal year report, as they did have an investor Q&A, because obviously investors know how many copies that Persona 5 has been able to sell, so what's going on with the next Persona is what they're going to be asking, saying, is there a chance that with its overseas popularity, the Persona series could sell 5 million copies in its first year? That's a pretty lofty goal. Think about where Persona was back on the original PlayStation, even say the PS2 with Persona 3 and Persona 4. Now we're talking 5 million copies for Persona 6 in its first year? Anyway, SEGA says, by increasing the number of platforms it is available on and the regions it is released in, we have been increasing the sales of Persona 5. We believe that it will be possible for a major Persona title, such as, I don't know, a numbered release, maybe 6, to sell 5 million copies in its first year by releasing it on multiple platforms and simultaneously worldwide from day one. And they also say that they have high expectations for Meta 4, developers Persona 5, but obviously people are like, okay, Persona 6, what's going on with that? I think this is the right strategy from SEGA, as I feel like most people would agree. It's been a little while, obviously, since Persona 5 came out, but this is going to be a game that has to live up to some very lofty expectations after what they turned out with Persona 5, and I do think it makes the most sense, even if it takes an extra year, maybe 2, to have it completely localized across the board, worldwide, as many regions as they can put it in, and then also as many consoles as they can put it on. This might be one where they treat the Switch similar to how the PS3 was treated with Persona 5, where, yeah, it's an older system because I think Persona 6 is coming out in 2025, and that might sound weird considering it has been this long since Persona 5 came out. I think we see Persona 6 in 2024, but it ends up coming out in 2025, which, I mean, the Switch will be pretty old at that point. I think they still get Persona 6 on the Switch, though. Again, similar to that PS3 release for Persona 5, but their main focus is going to be on Nintendo's next system, the PS5, PC. Who knows? Maybe Microsoft shows up and is like, hey, we want this on the Xbox. How much money do we have to give you to make it happen? And why not? Sega and Atlus can just collect across the board and, yeah, probably sell 5 million copies in that first year. I think Persona has grown to that point in terms of its recognition. Now it's time for Sega and Atlus to execute and cash in. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're gonna take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, do you double dip on digital-only games that get a physical copy later on? Okay, 61% say no, I just stick to the digital copy I already own. 39% say, yeah, if I like the game, I try to grab the physical copy too. Just Larian Studios' announcement around Baldur's Gate 3 getting that physical copy, even though obviously a lot of people have bought the digital version, did just kind of make me think of that, because I feel like we've been seeing that more and more, especially through the Switch's generation, and you can even say PS5 and the Xbox Series. It's just, I feel like we see a game come out digitally, and then a year later or so, we hear about how it's getting a physical copy, and then you kind of stop and go, I already own the game. Do I buy it again? And I tend to fall for that many times. It happened with Metroid Prime Remaster, I'll tell you that. They wave that in front of you as a shadow drop, and you're like, well, I want to play it now. Oh, and then also the physical copy is coming in like 4 weeks, and it's like, I guess I'm buying that too. That one at least was $40. Baldur's Gate 3, though, $80 for the physical copy. I feel like there are many people who have spent 100 some odd hours in it, and to them, it was technically a steal at the, what was $60 price or so, whatever it was on Steam. So yeah, why not get the physical copy for the collection? I was just curious to see how many people out there are at times falling for it like I am, where you end up just buying the game twice, basically. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Deli and Digital, saying, Spawn Wave of my B-Day, love it. Thanks for being amazing, you and the cast. Can't wait to share my channel next year. Keep being amazing. So first of all, happy belated birthday to Deli and Digital, and good luck on your channel. I still think most people should just take a shot and try YouTube. Try discussing things that you're very interested in, like if it's gaming, talk about your favorite games or what's going on in the industry or things you're looking forward to coming up, or maybe Nintendo announces the next system and you really want to discuss it with someone, or yeah, why not take a shot? Most people have phones that have cameras, and see what happens. I know people are nervous about being on camera and other things. It comes with repetition. So really nothing's going to happen until you try anyway, and then kind of go from there. But yeah, happy belated birthday, and good luck on your channel next year. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. Where's Bandai, Namco, and these new studios that they have? Do you think this is something that will really be strengthening their bond with Nintendo heading into the next generation platform? And then also, what about the PlayStation Portal? Did you pick one up, or were you busy fighting the resellers at this point? And then Persona 6. Are you happy to hear that it seems that SEGA woke up and realized, wow, there's a lot of people out there we could sell this thing to if it's not just kept as a PlayStation exclusive. Thanks guys for watching. Have a great weekend. I'll see you back here Monday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time for Newswave.